Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between two legendary warriors. On the left-hand side, we have Eruption leading the Vampire Coast up against Chabu 88 and the hordes of disgusting Skaven here on Oaken Hammer. This is a pretty interesting matchup all round. Both factions tend to favour range, but at the same time do have the ability to rush as well. We'll have to see what the players have brought to the table. Now, for the forces of the Vampires, looks like they've got an incredibly tight box formation for the most part, which is a pretty standard way of playing them and very effective as well. So it looks like they have zombie pirate deckhand mobs dotted all the way along the front line, and in the secondary line we have a ton of the deckhand mob polearms. These guys, cheap, cheerful, not particularly happy to be here, but not too sad either. They of course are animated corpses. Polearms bring a nice little bit of anti-large to help protect the rear from fast-moving large creatures. We do have some gunnery mobs in the central portion as well, looks like two of which, but the infantry isn't what we're really here for today. It's certainly going to be down to the heroes and these larger creatures to seal the deal. We have the legendary Queen Bess, who's currently a bit obstructed, trying to shoot for the back of a rotten Leviathan, which looks like a really horrendous mount option you could get. Imagine a rotten Leviathan with Queen Bess on the back. That would be very scary stuff. We also have the legendary Gallows Giant, one of, if not the coolest Vampires model in the game. Looks unbelievably awesome and shoots big old gouts of flame as if it were a mechanical dragon. Really cool stuff, coming with abandoned ship of course, extra powder, all that good stuff it normally brings, but also gives the burns effect, which is a -8 leadership. So not only are you going to be very good at clearing through the chaff of the Skaven and the infantry in general, Skaven have low leadership, so that burn effect will hopefully come in handy. We do have a gunnery white, who of course is going to be bringing the ever-useful more powder to help keep Queen Bess topped up. The Vampire Fleet Captain of Vampires coming with just Invocation of Nahek. Really cool model as well, these guys don't get enough love. We also have Aranessa Salt Spite, one of the coolest units and lords who never gets any use. She's pretty decent, but again, Vampires suffer from having too many good legendary lords. Luther Harkin and Count Noctilus being a big pain in the butt. She has Spearfisher's Net, which will pin an enemy in place and lower their melee defense by 24, and All Hands Ahoy, nice little buff effect there. So really cool build. I'm excited to see how the Gallows Giant does perform. Looks like Queen Bess, though, is going after the Death Globe Bombardiers here. So for the force of the Skaven, we have Clan Rats dotted all the way along the front line, so no cheap and cheerful Skaven slaves here. We have elite Clan Rats in the front line, who of course aren't really elite, but by Skaven standards aren't half bad. They're going to be dotted along in a nice, long, wide formation here, trying to force the enemy to slowly maneuver around, which is obviously very hard for the Vampires to do, they themselves being pretty slow apart from the scurvy dogs. In the secondary line, we do have Death Globe Bombardiers. Now, these are the more expensive variety of the Death Globes. They do come in with anti-infantry, great armor piercing as well, so we'll have to see how they perform. They can still do a considerable amount of damage, and they're not too expensive either, but that magic damage does have quite a nice niche up against some of the undead forces. We do have a ton of artillery. It looks like double Plague Claw Catapult as well as a Warp Lightning Cannon. Plague Claw Catapult can be very useful for getting rid of some of those pesky undead units, such as the gunnery mobs, normal units as well, but they should even be able to clear out Queen Bess's crew relatively quickly, but that job will probably fall to the Warp Lightning Cannon. We have one unit of Plague Monks as well in the back on the right-hand side, just to add a bit more meat to the grind. And we also have a Grey Seal of Plague leading the forces here on top of his Screaming Bell, having an absolute whale of a time. Look at him, just so happy to be here and enjoying the carnage. He does have Arcane Conduit. He's brought Plague, Vermintide, Wither, Bless with Filth, and it looks like Bless with Filth, the Dread of 13 spells, so a ton of spells, a bit too many in my opinion, but we'll have to see how they do perform. And we have a Mighty Doom Wheel. You can certainly never have enough Doom Wheels. Looks like in the back we do also have some Vampire Scurvy Dogs hidden in Sneaky Vanguard here. Doom Wheel going to be rocking forward, just admiring the handiwork of the long-range artillery fire. And yeah, these zombie pirate deck mobs not having the funnest time as to be expected. But this is a really funny play, actually, that is being done here by the Vampires. So what they've done is they've parked the Rotten Leviathan in front of Queen Bess. So Warp Lightning Cannon shots that would normally hit her instead are going to hit the Rotten Leviathan, which they then can heal up with Invocation of Nahek. So really interesting tactic here, but unfortunately for him, the Plague Claw Catapults are going to loop up and over the Rotten Leviathan and hit the crew anyway, absolutely demolishing them. So a nice effort here, but I don't know if it is going to pay dividends in the long haul here. Doomwheel is going to be floating around the back, just looking for a nice little gap to pound into. Also going to be shooting some Warp Lightning off as it does go. It looks like Queen Bess has been... Oh no, she's still just about standing. I thought I heard a large explosion of her being finished off, but she's getting incredibly low at this point. Over on the flank, it looks like the Scooby Dogs maybe have been spotted. Some Plague Monks and Clan Rats with Spears have been sent to engage them, but they're very quickly going to whip around the flanks there, being far faster, of course. 4 feet are better than 2, going to be floating around and be able to hunt down the Warp Lightning Cannon. At this point, I would pull some Clan Rats back away from the front line, as it looks like the frontline engagement isn't going to happen anytime soon, to ensure you can protect from those pesky doggos. Warp Lightning Cannons continuing to fight in at this point. Queen Bess has now been dealt with, so they need to switch targets, either focus down the Royal Leviathan or the Gallows Giant. In the back lines, the Doom Wheel doing a fantastic job of just grinding its way through zombies, as that rotten corpses and rotten flesh is churned into dust by the mighty Doom Wheel, but taking huge damage here from some counter-fire shots coming around. Needs to pull back as quickly as possible, as more fire does rain in, and the mighty Gallows Giant is going to apply that burnt effect, and the Spear Initiative net has come in on top of the Doom Wheel, going to be pinning it in place, and the gunnery mobs as well as the Gallows Giant going to be absolute roasting and destroying this Doom Wheel. Ironess Assault Spite herself is going to be looping out here. In the back lines, it looks like those pesky hounds did manage to hop on top of one unit of Deathglow Bombardiers and try to chase down some Plague Core Catapults, were then deleted by the second unit. Up to 49 kills there, and considering the front line hasn't got underway, they certainly did a decent job. Plague Monks returning to the main battle line, and at some point the Vampires are going to have to start to approach. They've not had the worst of it though. They have managed to break off and shatter the Doom Wheel completely, but losing Queen Bess is a pretty big blow, and also they're going to be taking fire on the long march in, something they certainly didn't want to do here. It looks like for the most part they are going to be focusing down at the range contingents. Those pirate gunnery mobs are taking a considerable amount of damage, and the other two as well looking a little bit worse for wear, as the last member of Queen Bess's crew does kiss the mighty barrel goodnight and fall into another realm. At this point, the Royal Leviathan is going to be taking a lot of the focus fire, which is a good targeting priority all round from the Skaven. But at the same time, Invocation Hex can come down. It has a huge health pool all round, so it is going to take quite a lot to shut it down. Looks like it is currently hiding behind the Gallows Giant as well, which is pretty funny stuff. Really interesting play so far by the Vampires player all round. But once they do engage in this front line, it's not going to hold too long. Clan Rats, of course, aren't amazing, and this is a lot of artillery pieces to protect. A very well-timed Scorch is going to come down, but beautifully dodged here by the Vampires player, just about whittling his way free. And the deckhand mobs here, though, taking some pretty big damage on the approach, maybe will allow the Clan Rats to beat them back themselves. We are going to see a Storm Vermin summon going down, but the Royal Leviathan can simply push through this, so they might want to push forward and start engaging the Gallows Giant, I think, is a not too bad idea. The Vampire Fleet Captain of Vampires taking massive damage as well, a lot of it from overcasting, as the Royal Leviathan does start to engage in the front line. Certainly will be having a good day up against all these pesky rat boys. Gallows Giant is going to be belching fire towards the Deathglow Bombardiers, taking huge damage here. Not going to be the happiest of bunnies at the moment, and they'll be breaking relatively soon, although they are going to be able to throw some of their globes before they do disappear, doing some really lovely burst damage straight out of the gate here. But more fire is raking down that flank now, burning fur and flesh together. Plague Catapults are going to be launching into the big old blob here of handgunners or gunnery mobs, which is a really good idea, some good targeting all throughout. Deathglow Bombardiers currently fighting due to Unholy Clamour being popped on them, negating some of that burnt effect, but I think it'd be worth pulling them back as they are taking pretty huge damage. Big Scorch does come down on the deckhand mobs, going to be lowering their morale, so they are starting to crumble, but the Gallows Giant stands relatively firm at this point. Vampire Fleet Captain certainly doesn't want to risk any more overcasts, although healing up Ironess Assault Spite might not be the worst idea. Royal Leviathan has just been swarmed by uncountable numbers of filthy rats, although tanking it pretty well and now forcing her way through onto Ironess Assault Spite, thinking she's a bit more of a juicy, squishy target, though she is going to have the support of the deckhand mobs here. Gallows Giant could push forward and help support in this big engagement, getting some lovely flaming attacks, but looks like he's quite happy to sit back as the Gunnery White is firing in at this point as well. And a ton of the Skaven forces are starting to shatter on this right-hand side. Looks like we're going to see another Scorch come in, do some really nice damage to the pole arms there, and they need to get moving and start shutting down at the Plague Core Catapults. All these Deathglow Bombardiers will have a good old day with them. Clan Rats trying to hold back the horde here of deckhand mobs, and Ironess Assault Spite going to be getting in here doing some really cool attack animations. She's got a load of cool flips with her awesome little peg legs as well, which I believe are the swords off like a swordfish shark or something in lore. I'm sure someone in the chat will know the story a bit better than me, but she comes in with some really cool ninja kicks there, kicking those rats in the face. A lovely summon in the backline of Clan Rats is being used to chase down the Vampire Captain here, trying to finish her off as quickly as possible. And she's minus 15 health. She's going to be crumbling. Glorious pick up there by the Skaven if she does indeed crumble to dust, and it looks like she is going to be doing that. The Gallows Giant is, though, still relatively healthy at this point, and up to 137 kills. Let's see who he's lining up. It is going to be the Deathglow Bombardiers, so they want to get those guys off the field so they can wreak havoc here. And he's going to do some lovely damage and probably break their leadership straight away. But the Plague Claw Catapults use up the majority of their ammunition at this point, getting some lovely value. And the balance power is Skaven favoured, as it probably should be at this point. Although Plague Monks in a very bad engagement. They're fighting the Rotten Leviathan. These are one of the more expensive units the Skaven have brought as far as infantry is concerned. And they're just being wasted. They're not really going to be able to do any damage to the Rotten Leviathan. And he can crumble them down quite nicely. Aaron's Assault Spite having a absolute whale of a time at the moment, just pinning apart and doing some really cool animations. They're sticking her spear into some of these Clan Rats, and now the Gallows Giant is firing across into this blob, and the rear attack from the Rotten Leviathan has completely broken this flank of Skaven forces, and unfortunately for them, the Plague Claw Catapult's pretty much done for. They've all got just a few volleys left, which yes can clear out the chaff, but what's going to kill this big Rotten Leviathan and Gallows Giant? That is going to be the problem here. Perhaps they can finish off Aranessa and then whittle these guys' leadership down. The Grey Seer has been pinned in place by a Spear Fisher's Net, and that's going to allow the Royal Leviathan to do some pretty decent work. Plague Monks as well, though, are here in support. Aaron's Assault Spite diving into combat, but it looks like a summon of Clan Rats has popped down. Unfortunately, no Storm Vermin. That would be a really nice pickup. Gallows Giant up to 248 kills at this point, taking a few shots to the face, but at the same time is going to be belching fire once more into the Deathglow Bombardiers. Every time I come to check him out, he's focused firing down that unit, and he's finally managed to shatter them here before going into combat up against some pesky Clan Rats. Balance power is now in favour of the Vampires, as the ammunition does run incredibly low here for the forces of the Skaven, and the Grey Seer Plague is taking an absolute pounding up against two single entities. The Rotten Leviathan, who does have all hands ahoy popped on him, turning him into an absolute world beater, and Aaron's Assault Spite, who does have that anti-large, not going to be having too bad of a time there whatsoever, although the Plague Monks are surrounding her as well, doing some relatively decent damage. You can see all the artillery pieces have basically had their crews abandon them and either charge into hand-to-hand combat with some scary foes on either flank. But Aaron's Assault Spite does go down here. This is pretty disastrous. So she's still alive, but she is routing from the field. Some of the Clan Rats maybe want to chase her down and try and finish her off. Just disengage this unit of 30 rats and finish her off. That'd be really huge. And perhaps the Grey Seer will be able to beat down the Rotten Leviathan. But he's pretty chunky himself, and the Grey Seer doesn't have the greatest armor piercing all round. In the fight over here in the second engagement, it looks like the Gallows Giant is able to pretty much force off all of the Clan Rats, who are currently terrified from the unholy contraption, and I do not blame them. It is now lining up another shot. It has a huge amount of ammunition left, but that's probably down to the Gunnery Right, who is still alive and shooting over in the back lines here, and he's having a good time so far, nearly 300 kills. Grey Seer going to be poking the Rotten Leviathan. Looks like an overcast spell does go down, which could be a little bit of a risk here. See, maybe it wasn't an overcast spell, maybe that was just the Arcane Conduit going down. As the not the Plague Rats, sorry, the Clan Rats do surround the Rotten Leviathan, getting rather low here, down to 2,000 health. Grey Seer, though, himself down to below 1,500. We do have a spell coming down, and it is the Blessed with Filth. Going to be enabling all these lower tier troops really punch above their weight to try and pull down the Rotten Leviathan, which is now starting to crumble, and all of a sudden the Vampires looking a little bit sketchy. Gunnery White is firing in, but both of their big hitters are really low on leadership at this point. But Aaron's Assault Spite is going to be darting back, just trekking, just jogging back. So interesting to see a leader who can actually break from the field from the Vampires, rather than one that simply crumbles into dust. Rotten Leviathan is starting to rally here, as well as the Gallows Giant. They have teamed up together at this point. This Grey Seer has been punching hugely above its weight, really going toe-to-toe with some of the larger creatures of the Skaven force, but it has been pinned in place. Spearfish's Net also lowering that melee defense. Aaron's Assault Spite coming in for glory. All hands ahoy has been popped, and she manages to break the Skaven force just like that. A really awesome, well-played Pyrrhic victory there to Eruption. Really fun game. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Anyway, awesome stuff. Let's have a little look at those glorious scoreboards. So Aaron's Assault Spite managing to come back in the late game. and steal victory from the jaws of defeat, getting a pretty solid 4,600 damage dealt and some really good damage value to boot as well. Apart from that, Queen Bess, I quite like the play early on of hiding her behind the Rotten Leviathan. Not only does it look incredibly funny, but it was pretty effective, at least from the start, shielding it from the Warp Lightning Cannon. But unfortunately, the Plague Claw catapults could obviously arc up and over and do some really decent damage, but not before Queen Bess managed to force off one unit of Death Globe Bombardiers, and they basically got no value whatsoever. Apart from that, Rotten Leviathan, good solid backbone. Not only was it a good meat shield, but also pushed through the enemy line, distracted the back line, dragged a lot of Skaven forces away from other key areas. And because there was these two really annoying large creatures running around the Skaven forces, they almost killed one of them. They just kind of do load of damage to one, load of damage to the other, but not managed to finish one off. So some more focus fire perhaps would have been the better option. Scooby Dogs managed to get in there and shut down one unit, but unfortunately were forced off themselves. Apart from that, really good play. The Vampire Fleet Captain unfortunately getting a load of miscasts, but the Gunnery White firing consistently for the whole game managed to get over 2,000 damage dealt, 900 damage value, and of course replenish the ammo on the Necrofex Colossus, or the Gallows Giant here I should say, which was really an MVP. 331 kills, obliterating, eviscerating chaff in droves, again 27,000 damage dealt, as well as 3k damage value. Very impressive stuff there. As for the Skaven force, very interesting. Just trying to sit back and outshoot the Vampires for the most part, knowing they are rather slow, and try to counterpunch with poison or Death Globe Bombardiers here. Lovely damage on this unit, 117 kills and 15,000 damage dealt. I do feel, however, that maybe cutting both of these guys and replace them with like triple of the cheaper variety probably would have been slightly better, but always good to see these guys in action. I like the inclusion of Plague Monks, but they didn't really get on top of any targets they enjoyed. They kind of unfortunately had to hunt down that big pesky crab. Apart from that though, the artillery of course got fantastic damage value across the board. Oh, that is disgusting. 11,000 damage, 13,000 damage, 10,000 damage, 13,000 damage. That is pretty insane, and a lot of them getting over 2k damage value, just under 1,000, nearly 2k, just over 1,000. Pretty scary stuff. The early loss for the Doom Wheel though was also pretty huge, I must say, because it was one of those really annoying units that Skaven can have. They could have darted around the back line, helped break up troops by rear charging them, and really shut down the guns very early on. But thanks to that Spearfisher net from Aranessa, something she brings to the table that other lords don't, I think they managed to shut it down rather effectively early on. Alright guys, hope you did enjoy. If you want to support the channel in any other way than just watching, feel free to like, subscribe, all that good stuff that I said prior. But also, we do have a Patreon system. If you go down to the description down below, you will be able to find a link to that and find out more info over on the Patreon website. Also, you can become a member of the channel by pressing that good old big fat blue join button for more information. Anyway guys, until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.